June 21, 1991, Long Island, Cedarhurst. Victor Orena pulled into his driveway around 7 p.m. He had no idea that a hit team was waiting for him in the shadows. As Orena stepped out of his car, gunmen emerged from the darkness with weapons drawn. They fired at him. Multiple shots, a full execution attempt. But Orena saw them coming. He ran. The bullets missed him. In that moment, the Colombo family tore itself apart. For the next 22 months, members of the same family murdered each other. Brothers killed cousins. Best friends shot each other. Entire crews were decimated. By the time the violence ended, the family had collapsed, and nobody actually won. The setup, the prison boss problem. To understand the Colombo War, you need to understand how a family could self-destruct so completely. In 1986, Carmine, the snake, Persico, was the boss of the Colombo family. But Persico had a problem. He was in prison, not for a month or a year, for good. He was sentenced to 100 years in prison with no possibility of parole. For most crime families, a boss in prison meant the end of that boss's power. But Persico refused to step down. He continued giving orders from inside prison. He continued running the family. He continued making decisions. To do this, he appointed an acting boss. First, his own brother, Alphonse Little Alley Boy Persico, took the job. Then, Little Alley Boy got arrested for loan sharking and served some time. So, Persico created a ruling committee consisting of 3 men, Victor Orena, Joseph Russo, and Benedetto Alloy. The committee was supposed to run the family until Little Alley Boy got out of prison. The problem, when the acting boss got ideas. By 1988, Victor Orena had been named sole acting boss. Orena was supposed to be temporary, just holding the position until Little Alley Boy finished serving his sentence. But something happened that almost nobody expected. Orena started making money. His crew on Long Island became a money-making machine. They were doing incredible business: extortion, gambling, loan sharking, everything profitable. Millions of dollars flowed into the family coffers because of Orena's crew. And the more successful he became, the more Orena started asking himself a simple question: why should I give this up? Why should he hand over power to Little Alley Boy? Why should Persico's son get the position just because of blood? Orena had earned it. His crew was producing, his men respected him. More importantly, Orena had powerful allies. He had the backing of John Gotti of the Gambino family. Gotti liked Orena. Gotti supported him. With Gotti's backing, Orena believed he could take control permanently. The petition, when the Orena challenged Persico. In 1990, Orena did something dangerous. He went to the commission, the board of directors of organized crime. He petitioned the commission to recognize him as the legitimate boss of the Colombo family instead of Persico. His argument was simple. Persico is in prison for life. He can't run a family from a cell. I'm running the family now. I should be officially recognized. The commission heard him out, but they refused his request. The commission didn't want to destabilize the Colombo family. A succession dispute between Persico and Orena could tear the family apart. So the commission said no. Persico was the boss. Orena could keep acting as street boss, but the ultimate authority remained Persico in prison. Orena was angry, but he accepted the decision. Or so it seemed. The breaking point, the betrayal. Orena decided to take matters into his own hands. He instructed his consigliere, Carmine Sessa, to poll the captains of the family, to ask them, would you support Orena as boss instead of Persico? Sessa began the polling, but Sessa made a critical mistake. He wasn't loyal to Orena. Instead of just Poland, Cesar reported everything back to Persico. Persico learned that Orena was staging a coup, that Orena was trying to convince the captains to abandon Persico and support Orena instead. Persico was outraged. He ordered Cesar to arrange a hit on Orena. The goal? Kill Orena and eliminate the threat to Persico's authority. The attempt, June 21, 1991. Carmine Cesar sent a hit team to Orena's home in Cedarhurst, Long Island. They waited in the shadows, loaded weapons, ready to kill. When Orena arrived home on June 21, they opened fire, but Orena saw them coming. He dove back into his car and crashed through the gates of his driveway, escaping into the night. The hit team had failed. Orena survived. The war, 22 months of family destruction. Once Orena escaped the hit attempt, something changed inside him. He realized that Persico would never stop trying to kill him. So Orena decided to go all in. He gathered his supporters and declared war on the Persico faction. What followed was the most brutal internal mafia conflict since the original mob wars of the 1920s. The Colombo family split into two factions. The Persico faction, supporting Carmine Persico and his son, Little Ally Boy. The Orena faction, supporting Victor Orena. But unlike a normal mafia war where two separate organizations fight, this was brothers fighting brothers, cousins fighting cousins, crew members who had worked together for decades suddenly killing each other. The violence was constant. Street corners erupted in gunfire. Clubhouses were raided. Soldiers were ambushed, leaving restaurants. Murders happened daily. By the end of the war, at least 12 significant members of the Colombo family had been murdered. Some sources put the number higher, around 20, 30 total deaths when you count soldiers and associates. The violence wasn't strategic. It was personal. It was brutal. The casualties, a family cannibalized. Gregory Scarpa Sr., one of the most feared mobsters in New York history, was attacked during the war. Scarpa was Orena's supporter. On November 18, 1991, 2 carloads of Persico supporters ambushed him as he drove. Scarpa, in his 60s and slowing down, managed to escape by hitting the accelerator and crashing through the ambush. But he was wounded and traumatized. He knew he was marked for death. Other major figures were killed. John Scopo, an underboss, was murdered. He was shot by an 18-year-old assassin named John Papa, who was dispatched by Greg Scarpa on behalf of the Persico faction. After the Scopo hit, Papa even murdered his 2 partners in the killing for trying to take credit for the assassination. That's how brutal this war was. People were murdering each other over credit for murders. Papa is now serving 4 consecutive life sentences. The violence touched everyone. Soldiers disappeared. Capos were killed in their cars. Business operations were disrupted. The Colombo family, which had once been one of the 5 families controlling New York, was being systematically destroyed from the inside. The winner, who actually prevailed. By early 1993, after 22 months of violence, the Persico faction had technically won. They had killed enough of Orena's supporters that Orena's faction was no longer a viable force. Orena himself eventually ended up back in prison for other crimes. But it was a hollow victory. The family had been gutted. Hundreds of soldiers and associates had been arrested due to the increased law enforcement attention the war brought. The family lost its seat on the commission. They were kicked off the board of directors of organized crime for the duration of the war. Business operations had stopped. Money wasn't being made. Territory was being abandoned. By defeating Orena, the Persico faction defeated themselves. The Colombo family never fully recovered from the war. The cost. What was lost? The numbers tell the story. At least 12 significant deaths during the war, though some accounts say over 30 total deaths when including soldiers and associates. Hundreds of arrests and federal prosecutions resulting from increased law enforcement attention the war brought. The family lost its seat on the commission. They were kicked off the board of directors of organized crime for the duration of the war. Business operations had stopped. Money wasn't being made. Territory was being abandoned. By defeating Orena, the Persico faction defeated themselves. The Colombo family never fully recovered from the war. The irony, the Persico victory, that was a defeat. The Persico faction won the war militarily, but they lost strategically. Carmine Persico remained in prison for life, still giving orders from behind bars. His son, Little Ali Boy, eventually took over, but the family he inherited was a shadow of what it had been. Meanwhile, other New York crime families flourished. The Gambino family, led by John Gotti, dominated. The Genovese family maintained power. The Lucchese family and Bonanno families adapted. But the Colombo family was crippled. It was as if Persico had ordered a victory that destroyed the very thing he was trying to preserve. The question: why didn't Persico just let Orena take over? Persico is imprisoned for life. He would never see freedom. He would never enjoy the benefits of being a mob boss. If he had allowed Orena to become the official boss, the family would have continued functioning smoothly. Persico's family would have remained in power through Orena's loyalty. Instead, Persico chose to fight, to maintain his authority from behind prison bars, to order murders to preserve his position. And in doing so, he destroyed the family he was trying to preserve. It was ego, pure ego. Persico couldn't stand the idea that someone would challenge his authority, even though he could never use that authority ever again. Even though letting Orena lead might have been better for everyone. Persico chose power over pragmatism, and the Colombo family paid the price.
The aftermath: a family in decline. After the war ended, the Colombo family was officially allowed back onto the commission in 1993, but they were damaged goods. Their earning power was reduced, their membership was depleted, their reputation was tarnished. The family would continue to exist, but it would never regain its position as one of the equal partners in the five families. By the 2000s, the Colombo family was considered one of the weakest of the five families, a dramatic decline from their historical prominence. The Civil War had accomplished what federal prosecutors couldn't: the systematic dismantling of a major crime family. The lesson: when internal conflict destroys more than external enemies. The Colombo War teaches a harsh lesson. An organization's greatest enemy isn't always external. It's sometimes internal. The Colombo family didn't fall to law enforcement pressure. They fell to their own leadership's refusal to adapt. A family member took over because their boss was incapacitated. That family member wanted to keep the job. The boss refused to allow it. The result was war. If Persico had been willing to yield authority, the family would have thrived. But pride prevented that. And in the end, nobody won. Not the Persicos, not Orena, not the soldiers who died. The only winner was law enforcement, which watched a major crime family destroy itself from the inside.